Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, May the 15th, 2017. Here's a headline from yesterday. May pledges Council House revolution. In an interview with the Sunday Times, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, said she will change the law. Apparently, can change the law. As we know, that can't be done. Even Elizabeth I said, it is not my purpose or position to change the law. Anyway, we'll change the law. Obviously, we're talking about legislation, but they want you to think that the law is legislation when it isn't. To help councils and housing associations build hundreds of thousands of homes, ending years of neglect of social housing. And then we set our mind back a little bit, don't we? We actually look at the overview, don't we? And we look at little points in that overview and we see, for example, selling off all the council houses by Mrs Thatcher. And then we see this culmination, don't we? This building of houses, which lines the pockets of these big building companies, Wimpy Barrett's, etc. There's an article on that, on how much money they are making for building these shoddy homes that are reported to be falling to bits and full of dangerous stuff. And they're unwanted by local people. But again, this emphasises the centralisation of this massive UN Agenda 21 sustainable development, all part of the corporate globalisation of everything. Gaia worship is involved with that. And yet, of course, Theresa May keeps claiming that she's a Christian. Well, actually, I haven't heard her ever say anything about Christ or Christianity. But people keep saying, oh, her faith, she's a Christian. And of course, this is the media trying to massage this big victory that I think that they're trying to get for her. And because people are now concerned about Christianity going away, not always for the right reasons, of course. But I think also there's a realisation of true Christianity, which is following Christ's message, the true message, according to the true translation of the Bible. The Aeonian books helps with that, as I've said before, but also your own efforts at studying the text helps with that. And also your relationship with God through Christ, the only mediator, as it states very clearly in the Bible, states that. And I think people are beginning to realise the importance of the true Christianity because, of course, it's at the root of our freedoms in this country, which are embodied or at least strengthened or at least allowed redress through the common law, which is being obscured and hidden deliberately by the likes of Theresa May and this corporation that's sitting on our country called UK PLC, which, of course, is so much linked with all the international banks and corporations through partnerships, etc. So, no, I don't think she's Christian, otherwise I think she wouldn't be doing her job, and I don't think she would be in any position that would allow her to say we're going to build houses all over the place in accord with an international plan to control everything, which is in accord with Gaia worship and everything else, which is what the UN Agenda 21 is about. Amongst other things, it's also about treason, because it's about handing authority over to an international NGO called ICLEI. And of course that's against the law, but then of course she likes changing the law, as it says here. Yes, people are becoming interested in the true Christianity because it is at the root of our country and the freedom of our country, which, like I said, is being pavemented over, but it's not completely gone yet, although it's almost impossible now in this country to have any justice without having a lot of time, a lot of patience and a very, very thick skin indeed. But yes, I think people are becoming aware of it, aware of the importance of Christian values and the spirit of Christianity in our country. Because, like I said, that does, in this imperfect world, give you as much freedom as you possibly can have at the moment. And it's very much under threat, the Christianity, as I talked about in my previous video. You know, we're all tagged, and we're all conduit. Yes, we are, as far as I know. Most people, more or less 99.9% of people are conduits to this dead entity, you know, the legal fiction, the corporation dead entity, which I would say is against the law, against God's law, and undermines the freedom. But yes, I go back again. Christianity is at the root of our country. The true Christianity, of course, not the stuff you find in churches, the true Christianity. And that's why they're talking about it so much. Anyway, Theresa May is meant to be this big Christian. Like I said, I've never heard her say, I'm a Christian, I follow Christ's rulings, or not rulings, teachings, and therefore I'm going to do X, Y, or Z to improve things. Nothing ever like that is said. There's just pictures of her going to a church, which I think is probably, well, I'm not going to go into that, but anyway, pictures of her going to a church. Oh, she's Christian, she has this faith. And there were headlines last week saying Theresa May's faith got her through all the problems of her parents dying. And of course, you know, it's terrible your parents dying. But The thing is, she said it was her faith, and it was in the papers. Her Christian faith helped to get through. Christian faith, because there are people realising the importance of Christianity, and so they're trying to make her appear as this sort of Christian woman who's going to save everything. Whereas, of course, like I said, there is no evidence that she's a Christian woman at all. And anyway, in this LBC interview that the paper's referring to, with her being a Christian, he said, "Tell me about your faith. How did it, tell me about your faith." He's trying to get to the nitty-gritty of this faith. And she just said, "Oh, well, how did it help you?" Well, what it does is it helps me realise that people come in all different shapes and sizes. So we're talking about the death of her parents, how she got over that, but she was helped by realising that people come in all different shapes and sizes. That's what her faith did to her. Do you see? She is not interested in the Christian faith at all, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, I think we'd see very, 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 very different actions. I dread to think what her true faith is. As they say, you can judge them by the fruits, or you can, if you see them by their fruits, you can tell where their position is by their fruits, can't you? As far as I can see, her fruits aren't that good. What she's trying to do is get people to vote. Votum, of course. Vote comes from the Roman, the Latin votum, which is pay allegiance to a god with a small g. And she'd like to be a little goddess, I think. And all the other politicians and parties are little gods and goddesses. And of course, this is actually against the law. You should love God with all your heart, Almighty God, the Creator, through Christ. Not put your allegiance in corporate entities such as political parties. Goodness knows why people are voting, when they realise the real situation. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that. I also thought I'd mention this cyber attack that happened. There was a cyber attack. I suppose some of you have heard of it. And it affected the NHS and so on. It's been on the news everywhere, so obviously something's being pushed, because nothing is ever reported without there being an agenda behind it, from what I can see. And yes, certainly being pushed, and it looks like a false flag to me, probably with the end game of trying to control absolutely the internet, which is another reason really not to live in the internet, is to get out of it, isn't it, as much as we can. And so there was that. It's also interesting that Bitcoin was a big high when it happened as well. I think it's a false flag. I think it's an inside job, as most of these things are. It's all planned very beautifully, and you can see that when you read that thing about the housing, and you can see if you look at the history of housing in our country, you can see it. Very, very nice pattern for building just about on everywhere, undermining local cultures, going to these remote little towns and building thousands of houses, many of which, according to the core strategies, are meant to be for migrants, again about undermining the cultures. And then of course you've got all this multiculturalism being forced on people, which again undermines, but you know all that, and I'm not going to go on about it. Don't forget, on Saturday the 20th, is the talk. I'm doing a talk in Raleigh Hall in Sherborne, in Dorset, and I'd like to see as many of you there as possible, and please bring as many friends as you can. I've got a reasonably interesting talk being prepared, and I look forward to giving it to you. So that's on Saturday. I think it does start at midday, Saturday midday, Raleigh Hall, Sherborne, and the details are on my website. Thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you soon.